Today we've got a crazy malicious compliance story all against one dude named Kevin. We'll get into that in a bit, but first, Daycare wants my office to park in our reserved spaces while they use ours too. We did. Been waiting for this one. My partner and I own a small 8-person company that shares a building with only a daycare. Our company consists almost exclusively of higher-level professionals. A couple lawyers, CPAs, etc., so most have their own large office, plus a couple of common areas, conference rooms, a nice kitchen. All in all, it's about 3,500 square feet, which is obviously a lot for 8 people, but necessary for our line of work. Due to the size of the office, the lease has a parking provision which grants us exclusive rights to all 24 parking spots. This is somewhat important to the story, not our work. We only need 8+ clients. Also important is the daycare's parking lot only consisting of about 10 spots in front of the building. The parents would use our lot to drop off, as the daycare's lot would be mostly full with their staff's cars, and even some of their staff would park in our lot. I didn't mind at all. We had over a dozen empty spots each day, and it was nice to have the mostly happy children around in the mornings and afternoon. Until a month ago, I started coming in a bit later at the same time as daycare drop-off. Our lot was crazy with parents and kids walking and parking, so I used their lot like they've done with ours for years. First day, no issue. Second day, the manager saw me get out and gave me a piercing stare. A week later or so, I did it again, and my car was towed. Not a warning or word from the manager or anyone at the daycare to me or our office. I went to the daycare to ask if they knew it was my car. It's a very distinctive old blue truck, and if some kind of mistake had been made. The manager came out and said it wasn't a mistake, and in a very rude, demeaning tone, her exact words were along the lines of, "Unfortunately, we can't have the liability of non-staff and parents within our lot, and I'm sure the parents don't appreciate having to walk further either, or an unknown adult like you in the lot." She looks me up and down, and I'm a totally normal-looking 30-year-old male. I think, at least. She says, "Don't you have some reserved spots in the back? You should really park there and let us park here." With an eye roll, she walked off. I was happy I held my tongue in front of the children, considering how freaking angry I was, knowing it wasn't the time for that conversation. A couple of days later, I told the manager while we were outside the office that I wished she would have come to me before towing my car and costing me $600, asked for an apology, and said since we share the back lot and the parents take up almost all of our spots in the morning and afternoon, can I park in the front lot the occasional morning the timelines align? She flatly said no, and basically gave me the same speech she gave last time. At least not commenting on my appearance this time. I left things for a week, thinking it was over, until again, I had nowhere to park one morning, having to wait 10 minutes for parents to filter out of our lot lest my car be towed. And who do I see but the manager getting a spot in my lot before me even? I decided to comply with the manager's wishes then and developed a plan. I contacted the building owner and said, or more accurately lied, that due to compliance reasons with a state license we're applying for, we need to have a gate installed with employee/guest pass access only on our parking lot. Our company would of course cover the cost. Same day approval from landlord, installed 2 weeks later. I drove in early that first day after install. I tell you, the mayhem was well worth it. Watching from the corner window gave me a perfect view of it all. It started with daycare staff pressing all sorts of keys on the gate to try and get in, trying to park where they have for months, years even. Then their lot filled up completely. Parents started arriving. A staff member had to stand at the gate telling parents there was now no access. Their parking lot was basically congested with parents double parked, taking their children in. Other parents parked a quarter mile down in another lot at the park our office overlooks. I eventually went down to give the manager a nice little wave and walked back up to my office. She gave me a piercing stare that just made me grin ear to ear. I guess she sent the owner a rather angry email about parking rights to the back lot afterwards, and how it's crazy one small office gets the entire thing. Apparently, she didn't know that we had all of it. He said him and I may have to discuss the parking provision in the future, and he also did not know the lease gave the entire back lot. but it's not a big deal to him. Not sure why he let me put the gate in. Regardless, I still have 2 years left on my lease with another option to extend an additional 5, so no plans on moving anytime soon from my office or my 24 parking spots. P.S. It's an office building next to a park and residential homes. I am in no way endangering these children since they now walk through a quarter mile of grass and playground to get to daycare. There's not even a street to cross from that lot. If anything, I made the days of the employees and parents better in retrospect. Actually, not sure employees can park in the playground lot for that long. Edit. Finally figured out how to edit, newer around these parts. To everyone asking me why I didn't tow, 2 reasons. 1, most importantly, I was tired and working 12+ hour days for a few months at that point. The day she parked there was the last or second to last day of that stretch, and then I'm basically 4 to 6 hours a day for 9 months. Towing a car was the last thing on my mind. Getting into the office and finishing my work was my only goal. Then, my partner suggested it when I recounted the story. 2, $600 can be a lot of money for some. I grew up fairly poor and know how devastating a towed car can mean to a family struggling month to month. Another day, I may have done it. I'm glad I didn't. So the manager that got OP's car towed had to have seen and understood the optics of what they were doing, right? I mean, I get it, their daycare is the one that's going to have all of these parking spots filled and bringing all of these people in, but that doesn't mean you get to get away with encroaching on the other parking spots that you're not actually entitled to, and then causing turmoil for the people from that company doing the same with one spot in your lot. That said, I do respect OP's restraint. They could have done it to multiple people who parked in any of those spots, any of those parents. They even could have gone out of their way to target just the manager, but it's not the most ethically satisfying revenge. Cramerica commented, "It's absolutely flabbergasting that people would rather treat a stranger like a complete piece of crap rather than just talk to them in a normal, non-aggressive / non-confrontational way. It literally costs nothing to just at minimum have 1 to 2 conversations and feel people out before you make a decision on how future interactions should be handled. People like that deserve every single inconvenience possible." OP responded commenting, "It's shocking, honestly. Happens far too often with opposing counsel's clients or even opposing counsel who cannot remain civil. So luckily, I basically deal with uncivil jerks for a living. Easy to deal with a situation like this in normal life with nothing at risk." Also, hi, I'm Steven, and if you guys enjoy crazy stories of malicious compliance, why not hit those like and subscribe buttons down below? That said, our next story is, okay, my turn now. Years ago, I worked at a department store that was known for gimmick promotions. This particular promotion was spend $50 and get this frying pan for $5. It was a quality item worth more, but 1 per customer. Management stressed that because they didn't receive a large quantity. One day, a lady says, "I spent $150, can I get 3 of them?" Politely, I said no, it's 1 to a customer. She throws a hissy fit and demands to see the manager. I call him and he arrives, chats with her, and then tells us to give her 3 pans. Okay, he leaves. Another customer comes up and asks, "How many can I get?" My reply was, "How many can you carry?" My coworker said, "We can't do that." But I did, and did that to every customer that asked. We ran out of pans quick. Manager became more thoughtful about embarrassing employees in front of customers after that. See, here's where me and OP differ. If I'm working that department store job, I'm there like, "I'm sorry ma'am, that's not the promotion, I can't do that." The manager comes in, says, "Oh, just let her have the 3 frying pans." I'll just put my smile on and go, "Okay, ma'am, guess I can do that, here you go." And then for the next customer, go right back to what the promotion says I should do. I mean, I don't get paid enough to start building rules and deliberations and spending time working on malicious compliance. Though, now that I say that, maybe that's the whole point. Maliciously complying may help pass the time. Ravioli commented, "Trying to follow the rules and then getting overwritten every dang time was one of my least favorite things about working retail. I worked a lot of sporting goods. The customer said, 'I closed this fishing rod in my car door. I'd like to return it.' I would say, 'I'm sorry, but that's non-standard wear and tear that's outside our return policy.' The manager chimes in, 'Just do it.' Freak you, Todd. Now this person's angry at me for no reason. Just let me return anything then. Let's avoid this stupid dance. That said, our next story is, you accuse us of time theft and being unproductive? Then look forward to an inbox full of unnecessary reports. I work in premium customer service at a bank, where we serve the bank's higher value customers. This usually gave us more freedom because, unlike in traditional customer service, the focus is more on quality than quantity. However, since regular customer service team leaders took over the project, our freedoms have become more restricted. We were accused of time theft because we didn't log out for 2 minutes to go to the bathroom. All of a sudden, we had to report whenever we are not productive. Many of us were threatened with warnings that could lead to us losing our jobs, and even if we just needed to talk to other colleagues about a customer case, we had to let them know. Otherwise, we could be accused of unproductive behavior. And well, we complied. A little too ambitious. Every time we went to the bathroom, we reported it to our project managers by email. Every time we went to get a drink, we reported it. Every time we took a break, we reported it. Every time we talked to a colleague about a customer case, each of the 2 colleagues reported it separately to the project managers by email. Every time we left our computers, no matter what for, we reported it by email to the project manager's mailbox. After a while, the project manager's mailbox was so full that even important emails were overlooked because there were too many of them. The project managers were completely overwhelmed, and shortly afterwards, the rules were abolished again. Here's the problem: they didn't go and hire an assistant micromanager. Clearly, the system was going to be set up for success, and all it needed was one dedicated person to overwatch every time somebody goes and tinkles. I'm sorry, are you not complying to the duties of your job? I mean, I've already noticed I've gotten 3 bathroom trip emails from you this shift. What kind of fraud is going on here? Striking Mode 5548 commented, I used to install security cameras for a restaurant chain franchise, and the director of operations said he wished he could get an alert every time the back door was opened. I stated I could have the system send an email, and he was elated. It took him less than 90 minutes to ask me to stop the emails. Our next story is, well, guess I'll take lunch then. This is going to be a quick one. My job used to be when you're done, go home. The earlier you're done with your task, the sooner you can go home. So I work, skip my 30-minute lunch and 2 15-minute breaks to go home early. Recently, we got a new manager and they changed a lot of rules. Now we must keep going back out until everyone is done, and our workload is tripled. Now on to the malicious compliance. I had finished my work fast with no breaks, then helped someone else. I came back to the office, already had 12 hours on the clock, no breaks. The new boss yells at me that not everyone is done, so get back out there. One person needed about 30 minutes of help, but he was a 20-minute drive away. So even if I started driving now, I would barely get there in time to help. I tried to explain this to the manager. They say, nobody goes home until everyone is done. Okay, I jump in the work truck, drive to a nearby drive-thru, and clock out for lunch. 30 minutes of relaxing and eating a burger later, I clock back in and call the guy who needed help. He's done, and the manager had called it a day. I go back to the office. The manager is there steaming. They tracked me on GPS, but can't do anything because I followed the rules. I am never rushing this job again. I'm going to take my sweet time. Every single day is going to be 12 hours or more, so might as well make it an easy 12 hours. I'm going to take all my breaks now too. I mean, it sounds like OP's a really good worker, and to be honest, they probably should just be taking their breaks. I mean, in a way, maybe this manager is instituting the rule the way they are because they want people to work in a more normal fashion. Who am I kidding? They want more productivity and output, but one can dream. Impossible War 2741 commented, take your breaks. You deserve them if you bust your butt the way it sounds. My petty butt would have looked my manager in the eye and said, okay boss, I haven't taken my lunch yet though, so I'm gonna go do that before I drive out to the site to help. Then just watch how much his face reddens as he puts together what's happening and that he legally, where I am at least, cannot tell you to do anything else. With labor laws where I live, your job is legally required to give you a meal break and 2 rest breaks if you work over 6 hours. C6H replied, "Here in Germany, the boss would be liable if you don't take your breaks after 6 hours of work. And exceeding 10 hours a day is illegal also. There may be exceptions, but they have to be sparingly documented and compensated with free time, and of course, overtime pay according to your contract from 0 to 200%. Our next story is Use Slow Computer for Demanding Project. I got voluntold for the job of switching a paper-based corporate learning to computer-based, including web-based training. I didn't have a desk or a computer, so I brought in my personal laptop. The boss objected and stated I needed to write a business case for a computer. A week later, I got the absolute minimum system that met the minimum requirements on the box. I started the painful process of converting a PowerPoint into an Adobe Captivate file. When it came time to compile the first file, the computer stated it would be 3 hours before it finished. Maybe, so I headed to the break room. The executive director for the project happened to walk in and asked me what I was doing there. I'm staying not frustrated while waiting for the first draft to compile. Should be about another 2 hours, sir. It was 5 hours. When I showed up the next day, my computer had been upgraded to the then top model with dual monitors. The next day, my fancy unit was on the boss's desk, and I had his even older, slower computer. The time compiling was over 10 hours. Back to the break room, same executive walks in. I just smile, nod, and go back to my lunch. The next day, I had 2 computers on my desk, the still compiling boss's unit and my previously issued fancy one. The boss was cleaning out his desk, having been sent back to frontline non-boss work. It felt so good to give that company the boot once the project completed. I mean, to be fair, in the boss's defense, you walk in and you see the new guy has a dual monitor fancy computer set up on their desk. I ain't got that in my boss office. I want a dual monitor setup for no reason. Granted, that's a terrible actual reason for taking the dual monitor setup and putting it in your boss office. Nunov Dubov commented, I had a boss who needed the biggest and best computer for prestige so he could read email. Nevertheless, I always made sure I had the leading edge machine and kept it cranking. I did my own IT, so no one else had the super user password for it. If they ever thought of taking it, they would quickly find it was just a large, noisy paperweight for them. Our next story is, can't get simple office accessories? I'll bring my own. 12 to 13 years ago, on my very first job, I was hired as a network administrator at a newly established, state-owned company. Everything was new there, including processes to request office accessories. So I was settled in an office room with bare minimum office accessories, so I wrote down several simple items to request them from support department. At then, it was just a guy. Later, it turned into an around 30 people department. Items included simple things such as facial tissues, cloth hanger. It was winter and I had nowhere to put my jacket. Headset, 3 colors of pen, and a whiteboard and markers and a wiper. The support department guy took a look at the list and continued with excuses about each item. Facial tissues are not for non-managers. Pens you can request only blue once a week if you bring the previous empty pen. Whiteboard and its accessories are also for managers, so is the cloth hanger. Like, non-managers are not allowed to have a jacket? And for the headset, he just laughed, like, welcome to a state-owned company, young one. I just realized how different are desks of non-managers and managers. It was these simple things, and I really didn't care spending myself. I just was wondering why others haven't yet. So the next day, I came with a facial tissue box with a beautiful design, a really good short cloth hanger for near my seat, good pens of all colors, and a light white glass as whiteboard, plus some markers to hang behind my chair, my own gaming headset, and a nice plate full of my hand-chosen sweets. My chair looked perfect. I really mean it. Especially when all the other desks in other rooms were just copy-pastes of the same sick idea. It was even looking better than managers' desks. By the end of that day, every manager and non-manager that came to my room, their first impression was looking jealously to everything for several seconds and then asking me how did support department give me these items? My answer, just normally with some proudness in my tone, replying, "The company's rules are written by beggars. These are my own, and it costed me nothing to make my room look like this." The next day, support department guy came to my room and told me, "Take all your own stuff home. I'll give you the same as everyone." I replied, "But I'm not a manager." He said, "We changed the rules. Everyone deserves these things now." So all OP had to do here to cause unrest and a complete reform is bring their own stuff in? Did everybody else just get by with whatever they could? Was there like a secret underground company thief ring to try to get the supplies they need to do their job otherwise? Talk to Stacy, she goes around and steals pens when nobody's looking. Has a great supply. Speculatrix commented, "I've had to supply my own keyboard, mouse, headset, and memory upgrade for my desktop computer when I worked for a broke company that was rescued from insolvency by venture capitalists. They were so tight with spending, it was crazy. When they sold us, I thought things would get much better, but the new company wasted tons of money and then made a bunch of us redundant." Anonymous replied, "Here's the playbook they used. The venture company Shell Corp merges with yours. They then leverage the value of your company to finance their other deals. They force your company to buy products and make sweetheart deals with their other main companies, padding their own pockets. They slash your workforce, make you cut corners to release cash, pay themselves big salary bonuses and shareholder dividends. They make your company sell or transfer IP or anything of value to the Shell Corp. The venture company splits up the merger, but leaving yours with all the leveraged debt. They then let your company file for bankruptcy, citing underperformance and blaming your previous inept management. Sometimes they retain partial ownership in your divested company. If you happen to make a turnaround with no money and claw your way back to solvency, they'll still take a share of your profits. This happened to countless companies, big and small. Sears, Kmart, Big Lots, Friendly's Restaurants, Harry and David, A&P, Toys R Us, Radio Shack, Delphi Automotive, many more. The worst offenders also raided the employee pension funds and then dumped the obligation onto taxpayers via the PBGC. In the case of Delphi, the big venture company was GM, General Motors. Our next story is, assistant store manager gives me more work and it backfires spectacularly. So I work at Home Depot as a lot associate. My main job duties involve collecting carts from the lot and being on call to help customers load heavy items into their vehicles. Since I'm typically the only lot person scheduled during my shift, this means I'm running back and forth trying to help customers and get carts. It really is a job that needs two people, one on each end of the store, but it's just me. Now, I can usually handle this, but when I'm assigned other projects on top of that, it's too much. On one such day, the head cashier, supervisor, who we'll call Karen, usually a nice lady but has Karen tendencies as you'll see, told me that Kyle, the assistant store manager, had such a project for me. He wanted me to clean out an area at the side of the store and move a bunch of carts there. This was going to take at least a couple of hours because the area was such a mess. And since this was during the summer when the store was busier than usual, I would be constantly interrupted with loading calls and trying to maintain the lot. This is where the malicious compliance comes in. Kyle wanted me to focus on cleaning that area, which I did. It ended up taking 5 hours. Bear in mind that I also answered several loading calls during that time. The problem? I didn't spend any of that time collecting carts, so after those 5 hours, the lot was a huge mess of carts scattered about. Karen wasn't happy about it, as she gets really picky about the lot being free of carts, but I looked her dead in the eye and told her that I was just doing what her and Kyle told me to do. I then went on lunch while associates from other departments had to round up all the carts. After that, Kyle never asked me to take on other projects. You know, I could say a lot of negative things about a job like that, but hey, at least one good positive is I'm willing to bet OP's cardio is pretty decent. I mean, OP being the only one in that Home Depot parking lot having to run around and pick up carts. And sadly, if there was ever a parking lot that probably had like a very high I'm leaving the cart out here in the parking lot ratio, it probably would be Home Depot, where you're bringing out lumber and wood and concrete and blocks and whatever. Funny Ask 9042 commented, Home Depot is always notoriously understaffed. I know, I worked there, and my head cashier was a Karen in every sense of the word. Good on you, I lasted 6 months. Our next story is Kevin versus the team. I have just found this Reddit and realized I have to tell you about the biggest plonker I have ever met. Around 15 years ago, I worked on a sales team and we got a new manager, Kevin. No one warmed to him. From day one, he strutted in like the second coming of Wolf of Wall Street, minus the charisma. He couldn't go 10 minutes without reminding us how incredible he had been at his last company. Apparently, he smashed targets, broke records, and worked his way up the ladder faster than anyone in history. If his mouth had a Fitbit, it would have 10,000 brags before lunch. The man didn't stop talking about himself and made no effort to get to know us, the team. At his first sales meeting, he opened with a monologue about his greatness that could have qualified as a TED Talk titled, Why I Am Brilliant and You're Not. Then, he laid into us about our sales figures. We were over target, but according to him, we weren't aiming high enough. We were a pretty nice and upbeat company, so there were lots of raised eyebrows and what the heck shared looks. Like, how do you bollock a team who are airwaves over target? Then he was so full of himself, he actually said, I could hit that target on my own. So if you lot can't smash it as a team, something's seriously wrong. One of my bolder colleagues said, wow, what a fun and educational idea. Let's make it a competition. You versus the whole team. Everyone clapped and shouted a heck yeah. Then, as if fate itself wanted to join the fun, our director heard the commotion and walked in. My colleague announced Kevin's going up against the team this month to keep us motivated and show us how it's done. The director agreed it was a great idea. The first week of Kevin versus the entire sales team was like watching a live-action version of David and Goliath, if Goliath was a middle manager with anger issues and David was literally everyone else. Kevin strutted in on Monday like he was about to deliver a master class but didn't achieve a single sale. Or the next day, or the next several after that. Meanwhile, the team was having the time of our lives. Even our new starter, Jonathan, a sweet, nervous lad who had never done sales before, was outselling Kevin by week 2. Every time Jonathan made a sale, the office would erupt like he'd scored in the World Cup. By the third week, Kevin had entered what we would call his tantrum era. Phones were slammed, headsets were thrown. At one point, he even dramatically announced, this system is rigged. Kevin didn't make it until the end of the month. He left because he was pursuing other opportunities, which we all understood to mean fired for being spectacularly bad. My colleague was right though. It was so fun and very educational. In our mutual hatred for Kevin, we worked harder than ever and smashed all previous sales records in company history, which felt extra satisfying being as this was Kevin's main brag. I looked him up on LinkedIn recently and his bio reads, world-class sales director, open to new opportunities, which I think probably means unemployed for being spectacularly bad and still full of himself. So it seems he didn't learn much at all. This is almost like if one regular person that you would imagine a middle manager to be walked into a gym wearing a brand new fresh pair of Jordans and said, I could take you all on. I'm so good at basketball. I've never lost. And so he accidentally talks himself into a game of one on, well, however big the sales team was. I'm willing to bet, pretty big in comparison. Talix Bad Reddit commented, director's wife saying, you seem to be in a good mood tonight. The director replying, the sales team is going up against that new chap I hired to lead them. It's going to be hilarious, and whatever happens, we're going to make bank. Our next story is, use only the official uniform. I worked part-time at a fast food place in Texas. We had a manager who was weirdly obsessed with rules. Once, she announced that we were only allowed to wear official work uniform items, nothing extra. My problem is that the restaurant's AC was always broken, and I usually wore a plain black baseball cap to keep sweat out of my eyes. She told me to take it off because it was an official uniform. I reminded her that the sun hits directly through the front windows and I would be dripping sweat over the fryer. She didn't care. Official uniform only, she repeated. So I took off the hat. Within an hour, sweat was literally running down my face and into my eyes. I had to keep stopping to wipe my forehead, slowing everything down. Orders backed up, customers got irritated, and she finally asked, "Why are you moving so slow?" I replied and said, "Official uniform only." By the next shift, she magically approved hats for everyone. You know, if you're working in a kitchen or really any place where you can contaminate what is served or provided to the customers with a bucket load of sweat, I would really much rather prefer that they have some like sweat headbands or whatnot as part of the official uniform. You know, kind of like those chef bandana things they tie around their heads. I mean, it's inevitable, human sweat, but if there's something that can be done to minimize that, I'm the kind of person that much appreciates it, even if it's, in this case, a plain black baseball cap. Quahog News commented, "Ick. With the heat from the window and the fryer, things would have slowed down significantly because people would have had to have stepped over my dead body to get anywhere. Don't you just miss those days?" But with that being said, that's all the time we have for today. Now, if you want to hear another absolutely crazy malicious compliance story, check out that video on the left. Or if you missed my latest video, check out that video on the right. That said, I'll see you all next time with some more stories.